Hi, everyone. A very happy new year to all of you. Thank you for joining the first masterclass of this year, hosted by the India Forum for Nature-Based Solutions. And this is the fifth in the series of masterclasses that we have been hosting since August of last year. My name is Harshal Suresh. I work at WRI India, and I'm part of the secretariat to the forum. So before I just kickstart with the masterclass portion, just a quick introduction about the forum. The India Forum for Nature-Based Solution is a coalition of research, practice, and finance organizations working to scale up the adoption of NBS to shape climate resilient cities and communities in India. The core partners of the forum include CEW, GIZ, India Climate Collaborative, National Institute of Urban Affairs, Nature Conservancy India, Wetlands International South Asia, WRI India, and WWF. So my colleague Arundhati will just post in the chat if you wish to know more about the forum. So the website links, the FAQs, you can even subscribe to the newsletter that we do monthly, which is the NbS4India Connect newsletter. So those links will be in the chat for you to check out. So in the interest of time, I'll just move on to the masterclass. Today, it's going to be an exciting topic. The topic for today is, as you know, art and culture-based storytelling for building climate action. I'm sure most of us will be able to associate with this topic as we have been using multiple communication formats, be it blogs, social media posts, uh, lately podcasts even, and so on in the climate space that we're working in, right? But today's topic will take us through a more creative and a strategic approach. And for this, we have two speakers from Purpose who are deeply passionate and, have been working in the space extensively. So, just a quick intro about Purpose. Purpose is a social impact agency that builds social movements to shift behaviors, social norms, public policies, and ultimately drive larger systemic change. They are a global agency and present across 5 geographies. From an issue lens in the Indian context, they have a strong portfolio in climate, public health, sexual and reproductive health. So we have Harpreet Bhullar, who's the Associate Director of Impact Measurement and Learning at Purpose. So at Purpose, Harpreet leads impact measurement for the climate portfolio in the APAC region. Her work involves collaborating closely with project teams to design impact frameworks and data collection methodologies, as well as overseeing on-ground evidence generation. She's also actively involved in building Purpose's climate thought leadership and is currently leading pioneering research on just transitions in India. So she has over 12 years of experience in international development programs through programmatic and monitoring and evaluation perspectives. Harpreet previously worked at the International Labour Organization and Save the Children on labor migration, child labor, and trafficking initiatives in India and the European Union. We also have Samya Ghosh, who is the Associate Creative Director and Head of Design at Purpose. He believes in the power of design and storytelling to create meaningful, memorable, and impactful campaigns. At Purpose, Samya guides and supports teams in designing movements and sustainable solutions that address people's needs and reimagine the world. He has over a decade of experience in design. Samya has previously worked with brands such as Adidas, Netflix, Facebook, and Budweiser, as well as organizations like the UN and the WHO. So before I hand it over to them, the broad structure of the masterclass is that we will have about 30 to 40 minutes of presentation. There are some exciting videos as part of the presentation. Towards the end, we will also have a Mentimeter exercise. So hope everybody participates in that. And the remaining time, which is about 20 to 25 minutes, we'll open it for Q&A. So request everybody to please share your questions while the presentation is ongoing, and even towards the end in the Q&A window that you will be seeing. We have kept the mute option closed in the interest of housekeeping. Um, with having said that, I'll hand over the floor to Harpreet and Samya. Over to you.
Thank you, Ashil. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's masterclass. Harpreet and I are really excited to be able to host this with WRI's team. And we hope that everyone today has a great takeaway from the session. So I'll share my screen and we have an exciting presentation to take you guys through. All right. So I hope my screen is visible, Harshil.
Yes, it is, Samya. Yeah.
All right, perfect. Okay, so as Harshil said, today's session is about art and culture-based storytelling for impact, and this is something that um, Purpose as an organization has been deeply involved in developing and fostering and using techniques to create meaningful and impactful campaigns. A quick look at Purpose. We are a global social impact agency with offices around the globe. I am personally part of the India team and based out of New Delhi, and Harpreet is based out of Mumbai. At Purpose, we are a global team of campaigners, creatives, strategists, digital and impact specialists, and we are all driven by purpose to make people remake the world. We shift narratives, drive change, we influence decision makers, and support world's leading philanthropies, brands, and NGOs to meet their impact goals. Now, just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of how Purpose functions, we have what some call the Purpose Climate Lab, PCL for short. And it's a creative storytelling lab that accelerates the adoption for climate solutions around the world. This model is based on hypothesis, and we engage with new audiences through a iterative and experimental model of working. And we do a lot of cultural research, power mapping, and we try and co-create hyper-local solutions for the audiences that we are working for. As you can see, we have a little bit of a diagram to show you how the whole process of the PCL model functions. We have the setup, we have the scoping phase where we identify these options, look at gaps in existing efforts, and then through the implementation session, we have accelerated and created new solutions over a feedback loop. The lab work also accelerates the pace of change by developing mechanisms to scale some of the existing and successful initiatives, but also trying to build upon great work and replicate some of these effective models across different geographies around the world. So as you can see through the model, we scale, replicate, and we try to find different ways of innovating and utilizing this model for all our campaigns. Now, just to do a little bit of a context setting for the power of art and culture-based storytelling and how it's a really effective tool to talk about any meaningful change that's needed in the society or in the world today. And it actually starts from a very simple fact, which is that humans think in terms of stories, and we try to make sense of these by telling each other stories. We try and make sense of the world. So storytelling as a tool is embedded within us. And it is why, as a species, we have evolved and sort of come to a space where we work with innovations and we work with technologies. But at the core of it, it's about believing in these stories and believing in the power of these stories that can create lasting change. And when we look at art and culture together, two big factors that drive our lives, our existence, if we marry that with storytelling, it becomes a robust tool for us to really explore and bring about valuable contributions to the society and bring about lasting change. So with this, I will hand over to my colleague Harpreet, who is going to take us a little bit deeper into how this dynamics of art and culture-based storytelling really plays off, what the model looks like, what's the research behind it, some of our insights from the ground and our work, and how together we have sort of built a methodology of using art and culture-based storytelling effectively for campaigning. So with that, I'll hand it over to Harpreet.
Thanks, Samya. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for taking out time on your Wednesday afternoon to join us for this conversation, which we hope would be engaging for all of you. So, just continuing the thread from Samya, as he was talking about the labs model that we have, we work in a lab to learn, right? So, as part of our labs model, we do continuous monitoring and evaluation to generate learning insights, which help us strengthen the design of our intervention. So, two of the key lessons which I thought would be useful for today's discussion is what we've realized from our work is that culture and social license matters. Campaigning becomes most effective when organizations transcend traditional boundaries, cultivate genuine community trust, and adopt strategic collaborative approaches. Similarly, tapping into local culture builds power, and we're very interested in building new forms of power. So, to shift existing power relations and power dynamics between interest groups, it is ever so important to build individual agency, civic engagement, and collective power. And it is absolutely essential to build a movement that is deeply rooted in culture. If we can go to the next slide. So just going beyond the work that we have been doing and learning from it, we also wanted to share some insights from the research we've been conducting to understand and generate an evidence map for our theory of change. Some very interesting insights, and I'd like to begin by quoting this interesting paper by Diego Galafasi from the Stockholm Research Center and others. It's a very interesting paper called Raising the Temperature, the Arts on a Warming Planet. So I strongly recommend everyone to go through it as well, which actually talks about how the role of art in addressing climate change has been continuously understated in say IPCC reports, and therefore through the academic research that they have been doing, they're building a case for artistic engagements that and they say that artistic engagements are sites of active experimentation, right? They enact novel forms of socio-ecological relationships, lead to more than rational explorations of current systems and possible futures, and also hold potential to empower citizens to take active role in co-constructing the meaning of nature in society. And similarly, Stephen Lewandowski, who studied climate change misinformation and denial, proposes a very interesting jiu-jitsu model of persuasion, taking from martial arts reference, that in a context where people are, despite being exposed to very clear empirical evidence, people do not want to believe in climate change or the impact of climate change, or they think that it does not impact my life. So what he suggests is that when communication can go a little deeper, communication messages can try and target the underlying attitudes that form this denial or this rejection of a phenomena like climate change, and speak to the fears, the underlying ideologies or orthodox beliefs and worldviews that they hold, then that messaging becomes extremely effective. And therefore, culture can play a very important role in resonating with some of those underlying attitudes and beliefs. Lastly, Jamie Hand from Art Place America, that's doing very interesting work in repositioning art and culture as a core sector of community planning and development. And through this, they're trying to strengthen the social, physical, and economic fabric of communities. So Jamie Hand emphasizes that the role of art in building community capacity and agency is extensive, right? And collective power, participatory decision making. These are things that we are otherwise would struggle to achieve with art and culture-based approaches help us enable and unlock some of these hard to achieve goals. I do want to acknowledge here that most of the research insights that I'm sharing right now, they're coming from Global North. And we're very keen to build an evidence support that's coming from Global South and beyond the work that Purpose is doing itself. So if anyone has any suggestions of papers that are speaking about similar arguments from the Global South, we'd be very delighted to review them. So please do share some of your recommendations in the chat box as well. Based on this context and these insights that we have looked at from our experience as well as the research, if we can go to the next slide, we've developed this 5-point framework for art and culture-based storytelling. So this framework basically serves as a strategic blueprint for designing interventions that align with these 5 key components or goals, if I can call them that. While the first 4 components are relatively independent and they allow for targeted intervention design, we do believe that their successful realization collectively contributes to the 5th component, which is about fostering long-term sustainable participation. So participation therefore represents a higher order goal for us in that way, which is likely to be achieved over an extended period of time and is built upon the foundational success of the preceding 4 components. This framework can also help determine the efficacy of interventions that are deploying art and culture-based storytelling to evaluate their contribution to driving climate action by looking at, how the interventions have shifted narratives, built perception, developed a shared sense of responsibility, hyperlocal solutions, and ultimately participation. So very quickly going through these points, although they are a bit self-explanatory. So narrative or narrative shift refers to new narrative frames, new themes, new lexicon that is rooted in lived experiences and has the ability to construct a deeper resonance of climate issues with people and their lives. So climate change as we know it is full of scientific concepts and language. And art and cultural storytelling enables us to reposition the phenomena in a very relatable way. Perception shift refers to disrupting the status quo and bringing a shift in people's underlying beliefs, attitudes, and overall perception. Shared responsibility refers to the power of art to bring together unlikely audiences. This is something that we have seen time and again in our work, that art-based approaches help in connecting people who would have otherwise not met in any other scenario. It helps in breaking socio-cultural barriers, personal barriers, and establishes a shared sense of responsibility, which is otherwise very hard to build. Hyperlocal solutions refers to an approach where, having a very cultural and creative approach lens helps in unlocking imagination and innovation that is needed to develop solutions. In a world of problems and polycrisis, we need work that is focusing on solutions which are emerging from extremely hyperlocal context and needs. And we know that hyperlocal solutions are also known to contribute significantly in shifting the narrative. Ultimately, participation refers to direct actions and initiatives taken by individuals or collectives who have built a very strong sense of agency and power, and that's what we are interested in. So, and the implicit reference here is also about developing a long-lasting, sustainable action, and not just in immediate and interim action. So yeah, this is the framework that we wanted to share with you, and we thought it would be interesting to also share through a project case study on how we also bring this framework to life. So in a forum, where we have stakeholders who are concerned and are working on nature-based solutions, we thought we'll share a case study from a campaign that we've been running in Mumbai for the last 4 years. It's called Ministry of Mumbai's Magic. Some of you may have heard about it or may have participated in some of the activities that we would have done as part of this campaign. So very quickly, Ministry of Mumbai's Magic is a collective that represents and actually it harnesses the creative and social power of young Mumbaikars that are residing in the city, are passionate about climate action, want to do something about it, and believe that by coming together as a collective, they have this solid power to build change and drive sustainable and long-lasting change. And when we began working on this project, Mumbai has always been a very interesting case study from a climate change perspective. We know that it's been witnessing extreme climate incidents, the fragile coastal ecology, biodiversity, the impact of extreme infrastructure development. All of that has resulted into, the situation that we feel on a daily basis, we experience on a daily basis. So back in 2019, we conducted an audience research as part of our strategy phase, where we were trying to understand who holds power. Our research told us that youth are a very critical and key constituency that can move policy on climate. However, our research also told us that the youth lack um, avenues to be able to do something about the issues they feel very strongly about. They do not want to take a very antagonistic position or be very aggressive in their approach, and therefore they were struggling to to access any kinds of avenues where they could actually engage in solutioning and therefore working towards driving climate action. Secondly, we also realized that from a policy perspective, the policy landscape mapping that we did, we realized that the voices of young people or the voices of impacted communities in the city who are facing the brunt of climate change are not at all reflected in the policies or the policy initiatives that are being implemented. So somewhere the idea was also to bring together the youth from um, a very creative and collective approach, but also be able to elevate youth perspectives and perspectives of impacted communities through the work that we were pursuing and to influence decision makers from that lens. I will hand over to Samya to take us through some of the specific examples of creative interventions that we did to work towards some of the goals that we showed in the framework as well.
Thanks, Harpreet. So as Harpreet was mentioning, we sought to engage the untapped youth audience and try to leverage our 5 pillars model of art and culture-based storytelling. While we did a number of tactics and creative interventions during the almost 3 years of this project, we'll be kind of deep diving into a few of these to kind of illustrate the idea how creative and art-based interventions really help bring the community together, sort of started this new narrative, and also empower the youth to have a lot of ownership and also accountability and responsibility in order to be able to take some climate-related effective action and ultimately go towards ownership and also build that over long term. So one of the first interventions that we did on this campaign was called Make Art for Mumbai. This was going to be a series of illustrations, artworks, where we asked young artists from Mumbai and across India to um, sort of enter and talk about how they see Mumbai evolving, how they see Mumbai's biodiversity evolving, and also sort of focus on the future forward-looking angle of the ideal Mumbai that they want to see. And through this, we created an online exhibition, and also it was put together in a form of a zine. And we received over 100 entries from 92 artists from various backgrounds. And while we had a lot of social media interactions through these in terms of postings, and also a lot of interactions on our digital exhibition, which was part of our website. We also were really fortunate to have this scene presented in a virtual town hall to the principal secretary of environment and head of mangrove cell, and it was done on the occasion of the International Day for Conservation of Mangroves. So some of the art that you can see are again really in various formats. This also illustrated how different sorts of art formats, different sorts of sort of traditional art can also come into play, and we sort of created a bank of these really amazing illustrations to create a very solid foundation for a art-based approach. Moving on to another intervention, which was called New Catch in Town. And this was in support of the Kolivara community, the Kolivara fishing community that is been a very important historical as well as cultural part of Mumbai. And we partnered with Bombay 61 to pilot a project at the Malad Creek. It was inspired by these fishing practices. And the idea was to, again, co-create a solution with the community themselves and engage in recycling of the waste that's collected and also preserve the fish movement. It was also to raise public awareness around climate equity, and we created a short documentary film out of it, and it also led to a public festival which celebrated the Koli community and its historically conservative efforts. As you will see in this video, we will sort of do a quick focus on how all the things culminated into the event that I talked about. Also, one of the key things to remember was how we introduced new vocabulary into the audience. What was really happening is the creeks were looked at almost like gutters and nalas, and they were not looked at like a biodiverse, rich river or something that the community really thrives upon. And which is why it was really important to break that notion, and we were sort of able to shift that narrative, shift that perspective around the Kolivara Creek specifically. And just to give you a quick glimpse of the new Catch in Town initiative and the Samvat Kharicha event that was like a culmination of this particular creative tactic.
केवळ एक एक्झिबिशन नाही तर हा एक उत्सव आहे जिथे आपण कोळी समाज आणि वादी समाज.
And I think this exhibition is really important because it's helping us understand like the systemic changes that are really happening and how that's impacting not just the ecosystem but also the livelihoods that are attached to it.
उम्मीद समझ है कि अगर हम बाहर जाना चाहें उनका जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग है उसको किस तरह से हम बढ़ा सकते हैं. आपका जो पारंपरिक रोल रहा है अपने वातावरण को कंजर्व करने के लिए, उसके बारे में क्या हम उन तक ये जानकारी लेके जा सकते हैं और क्या हम उन्हें यहाँ पे लेके आ सकते हैं कि हम एक दूसरे के साथ एक संवाद शुरू कर सकें.
Sewage.
Dustbin. Polluted.
You. But I would really like to change my perception about that and everybody's.
इवन दो मैं यहाँ बचपन से यहाँ इधर रह रहा हूँ, फिर भी मैंने भी एग्जीबिशन में आके बहुत कुछ नया नया देखा है और हिस्ट्री के बारे में पता चला, लाइक क्या क्या था हमारे गांव में पहले.
I wasn't aware that there was, this way of degradation that has happened, and just being aware of it and letting my kids also getting aware of this kind of issue is the first step to understanding what next can we do as regular citizens to save our community.
New catch in town is a fantastic idea. Meaning, so since it is a catch and I am come from the fisher folk community, catch is the production for us, which has always helped us to go on a next level. If this has been replicated to across all the rivers or all the creek areas, I think in Marathi I would say that the river, the khadi किंवा ज्या नदी आहेत त्या सगळ्या जिवंत होतील. Meaning, the way it used to be, let's say 25-30 years ago, it used to look better. It will start look like more of a live rivers than just having those black dumped rivers or creeks.
These projects are not just about knowledge, they showcase what we call as practice. So different actors need to come together, and because each of them has a unique perspective and a unique history of dealing with these resources and ecosystems. So bringing together this knowledge under this rubric of co-production of knowledge through these different alliances, we would like more of these to happen across different parts of Mumbai.
So just as you can see, the activity was actually sort of part of different micro activities that culminated together. And one thing that really stands out, and we sort of understood that ourselves while interacting with the Koli community, is that like any indigenous communities of the world, they hold a very vast and rich sort of artistic ability, but also historic knowledge of that area and ideas about conservation. So the aspect of co-creation was really, really strong as part of this project, so that we utilize their knowledge and we become enablers to some of this authentic wisdom, cultural and artistic wisdom that they have, and sort of leverage that to create a solution that can be scaled up and utilized in various parts of the country and in the world as well. Moving ahead, there was another intervention and tactic that we did. This time it was an interactive installation that we did in the Spoken Fest in the year 2022. Spoken Fest, as some of you might know, is a culture-based festival that happens in Mumbai, and we partnered with community as their sustainability partner, and we feature the high-impact interactive installation focusing on themes of biodiversity, sustainable mobility, and also climate equity. As you can see some of the glimpses, we created a very unique batch wall and sort of asked participants and people who were interacting with the exhibition to talk about their sense of how they feel Mumbai as a city should be evolving, how climate action should be part of the planning going forward. And this also resulted in an amazing sort of interaction with over 2,000 Mumbaikars, which sort of opened up a conversation again around how youth can come together and really form a community to be able to take clear and precise action. And once more, we utilize this event, which is again a very culturally relevant event for our audience, and we wanted to make sure we are there as part of the sort of vocabulary of the youth, while maintaining the need for climate intervention from the next generation. And again, quickly, we have a small video to show about the event. I'll just...
young or old, I think collectively a lot can be done. The change is where there's like togetherness and like with the mentality of like changing.
We do have younger leaders now, and in the next 10 years, our generation is going to be in political offices, and I kind of feel like the youth today plays a huge role.
Once you're knowledgeable about something, you're aware. Knowledge creates awareness.
The fact that so many young people are not just aware, but they're taking action for climate change, I think that is the biggest reason for hope.
Okay, as we move to the final example of another intervention that we did, and this was more recent, in 2023, again, we looked at a cultural event to collaborate with and again foster this idea of bringing the youth together. So what you could see is sort of started to happen over the years of these convenings is that the MMM community started becoming stronger and stronger, and also became a sort of recurring theme around all these interventions that we were doing. You could imagine like common people coming to all these events, getting to know one another. So that was also creating a sense of community and self responsibility and action. And on the occasion of Echoes of Earth, which is India's greenest music festival, we had a few interventions planned within this event. So we did a panel discussion with youth leaders to talk about some of the creative solutions that they have been doing in their own work. We had 5 storytellers from MMM who were there to share their narratives and inspire solutions. We also, post the panel discussion, actually co-created a solution with the audience, and again that sort of really harped upon the collective effort, the responsibility piece of this whole action, and also draw upon engagement and participation. And this also led to the co-created solution actually taking place later in the year. And we tried to again build a shared responsibility and leadership for these individuals, because ultimately the idea was to create MMM as a self-sustaining body without the need of any outside intervention, so that it could continue to foster this sort of youthful energy towards taking meaningful climate action. And I will pass it quickly to Harpreet to actually talk us through the final sort of culmination of all the years of effort of MMM, and how we have now the Youth Action Circle, which has sort of become this embodiment of the value that MMM was able to build.
Thanks, Samya. So at Purpose, what we follow in terms of participation is called a movement methodology. And if I simply put it, it's basically taking people on a trajectory of interest, engage, and lead. We begin by engaging them in interest-based activities. We facilitate participation, and then ultimate goal is for the key audience to start leading on the initiatives in a more independent way. For us, the Ministry of Mumbai's Magic Collective, from the larger collective emerged a youth action circle, which is basically a cohort of 6 youth leaders who took upon, towards the mature phases of the campaign, who took upon the responsibility of leading some of these initiatives and designing communications interventions, facilitating digital engagement, and leading on some of these solutions. So this is a collective which is now taking forward the work that has been started by MMM and is carrying forward the legacy of MMM. For us, and we can go to the next slide as well. the formation of the Youth Action Circle as an autonomous, body that's taking the work forward is one of the core impact of the work that we have been doing through this campaign. Similarly, MMM is now with the history of like 4 to 5 years. It is a very well recognized brand and comes with a lot of credibility. There have been numerous events, public festivals, some of them Samya mentioned and took you through, where MMM has collaborated in a strategic partnership as the sustainability partner, knowledge partner. A lot of the creative assets that we have built, be it the biodiversity map, the people biodiversity register, the Dekha and Dekha mapping of local biodiversity in Mumbai's parks. These are some of the assets and knowledge products that we have created, which have been widely taken up by ecosystem stakeholders. They've been deeply appreciated by BMC officials and other government departments, and they are a knowledge repository of good practices that we can deploy to build youth leadership on climate. Lastly, echoing what Samya was saying about the engagement with the Kohli community, we have been able to build and drive a very strong equity-based narrative on climate in Mumbai. The work that we've been doing as part of this collective was also in parallel to when the Mumbai Climate Action Plan was rolled out. And as we all know, vulnerability assessment is one of the key, tools through which some of the solution planning has been recommended through the action plan. So somewhere the idea was also that how we can bring the Kohli community, one of the most impacted communities, into that vulnerability and hazard assessment, and through that process bring their needs, their demands into the focus of policy makers and decision makers as well. Very quickly giving you a glimpse of some of the other work. We've been talking about one project example, but we've been deploying this approach across issue areas, across geographies. So Ali Serona is our work, which is focused on building agency amongst informal women from informal workforce, and who are driving the demand for gender inclusive mobility solutions and urban solutions in Bangalore. Khud Puche has opened up conversations on dignity in healthcare, and through the voices of young people in Bihar. Bunyad is just transitions work in the brick industry, where we are elevating the kin owners and worker voices for just transition within the industry. So just a few more glimpses of some of the other work that we are doing. Across India, we're present in all of these states and cities. It's just to give you a glimpse of the scale and the depth of the work that we are doing. Our climate work beyond biodiversity protection focuses also on mobility solutions, generating community-based demand on renewable energy, and whole sorts of other issue areas as well. And I think we are almost towards the end of our presentation. We took slightly longer than what we had hoped for, but I hope this was helpful and has been a good thought starter. We're very keen to also hear from you all on, based on the framework that we presented, the approach that we presented. If you have any immediate ideas on, how you think that you can integrate or deploy art and culture-based storytelling in your work, we would quickly share link to Mentimeter and a code. If you can all just jot down very quickly your ideas that you may have at this point of time on how you can integrate this approach within your work, that would be great. I have dropped the link to Mentimeter as well as the code in the chat box. And yeah, very keen to hear everyone's thoughts as well. So if we can quickly take a minute, I hope everyone's able to log into the website. and I can share my screen.
Yes, we are, Harpreet.
I hope my screen is visible. Cool. If everyone is able to log into the website as well as feed in their answers, you can probably just give us a thumbs up so that we know that there's no tech challenge. While people send their responses, Harshal, also keen to know if there are any questions that we could start looking at, and maybe Samya and I can try and answer those.
Absolutely. First of all, thanks so much, Harpreet, Samya. This has been a brilliant presentation. I think someone who's been working in this space, I'm sure I can relate. I can speak for others as well. I think the kind of different formats you guys have used, and also different, the artists, the fishermen, the fishing community, and the different segments of stakeholders that you've targeted through different formats is really interesting. So yeah, there are questions that have come in. uh, there's an interesting question where, this is a good segue actually, that you've used a lot of visual arts and crafts, but have you also leveraged performing arts in any way in any of your campaigns and,
Yeah. I'm glad this question has been asked. Thank you, Amit, for this question. Yes, I actually, to be honest, I think our focus has been more on visual arts and culture-based storytelling. However, I do have one example from our Just Transitions work that we are doing in the brick industry. Interestingly, the age-old participatory method of street plays and participatory street art is something that worked wonders for us in understanding the concerns of villages and villagers who reside around brick kilns on, what are their perspective on the brick kiln operations. Workers who work at the kilns to understand like what their experiences are, what do they think about a clean energy transition which is inclusive and just. So we did a series of street plays across villages in UP to gain perspectives of worker community as well as the villages across brick kilns, and it really helped in bringing out some of the nuanced insights, which in a setting which is more formal, like because the work that we're doing in the industry, that's very industry specific, so most of our engagement is with the industry stakeholders. It really helped in bringing out some of the insights which a structured stakeholder consultation format would not allow us to, and also build support with the PRI leaders in the villages. So that's one example that comes to my mind. Samya, if you want to share any from your end?
Yeah, I think another format that we had used for one of our projects, which is called Baatein Unlocked, was the traditional storytelling format of shadow puppetry, which is also really prevalent in parts of India. The intervention was done in Odisha with youngsters and school-going students with the help of a really prominent artist. And yeah, that also helped us talk about difficult sort of issues and difficult subjects like sexual and reproductive health rights, especially around young girls. And again, such a unique format gave the audience, the girls, really a lot of freedom to express themselves. And we have also tried to make sure that these sort of really indigenous art practices are continuously revived and also brought into practice more often in our work. So yeah, that's another example I could think of.
Thanks, Samya. Harpreet, I think there's a connected question, like which is, whether local corporators, the political sort of leaders have, or officials for that matter, the local level of officials, have you been able to engage with them, in your campaigns? And, usually what is the sort of uh, approach that you use, and how are you also like using participatory knowledge, citizen inputs, in your practice, right? How are you integrating those into policy and practice? How are you sort of facilitating that? So,
Yeah, sure. I can try and address Anuja's question on the experience of working with policymakers and government stakeholders. So, Anuja, the approach on art and culture-based storytelling that we have been using that focuses more on building public engagement and building a groundswell of demand for policymakers to act for supportive policies, right? So the approach has actually been to build, has focused to build the demand on ground from stakeholders, build the political cover that is needed to drive certain action from the decision makers. However, I would say that a lot of the assets that we have built, for instance, the zine that Samya presented, that has been, as well as the biodiversity map, the map was developed as an educational tool to build awareness about the local biodiversity that exists in Bombay, as well as some of the community leaders who have been sustaining and preserving the local biodiversity. So that map has been really well received by the BMC and across like multiple government departments as well. So we've seen that there is a lot of positive response and acknowledgement from the policy makers. And when it, I think maybe Samya, you would want to give the example of Alice Rona as well, where we've used participatory art approaches to actually get the demand realized from the policymakers. So, because I don't want to do all the talking, so Samya, do you want to share that example?
Yeah, sure. I think Ali Sedano was also something that we mentioned in one of our slides. So there we worked with informal workers, women informal workers in Bangalore, and the idea was actually to help help their mobility issues because they were living in a space where they did not even have a basic bus stop. So the idea was to help galvanize them around art installation and sort of demand for a bus stop that can be created there for their travel needs. We again partnered with the organization to bring about this intervention into life, and we actually created a sort of makeshift, very sort of culturally relevant to this area. We created like a bus stop, and the idea was for women again to come there, interact with the bus stop, talk about their issues, and we also try to have a media moment around that, so that kind of reaches the audience and the decision makers and the policy makers to really help the situation. And the biggest success, I think, that came from that intervention was, I think, in a very short time, and I don't exactly remember the duration, but the local municipality and the local government actually signed off on creating a bus stop in that very same location. And today there is a bus stop there, and the women there can actually travel easily to their work destinations. So that's one example where the art and culture-based approach directly resulted in a very infrastructure change, which is very, very hard to do, as many of you will know working in this sector. but we are really happy to sort of see that achievement. I can share the link with everyone so they can read more about that project.
I think you must share that link. It's a very cool video that you all put together. Everybody must have a look. It's pretty interesting. There's also a question on another format, right? So from Rohit Lahoti, he's asking, can you share some instances where participatory photography was used as a medium for storytelling about climate change impacts, and what change you could see in the short term, if any, that resulted out of this? Because he feels this medium can bridge the gap between scientific data and the lived experiences of people affected by climate change. So his question is centered around participatory photography, if it was used.
Yeah, I think our Samvad Kharicha festival had a whole section on photo narratives. So this was a festival that we did to celebrate the Koli community and the role they play in conserving the biodiversity as well as the coastal ecology of the city. And we had interesting formats there. We had representatives from the community itself who captured some of the visuals about the local culture, the livelihood practices that they follow, how they are being impacted by climate change, as well as we had young professional photographers as well capturing some of those photo narratives. So that was a very interesting approach to bring out again some of the nuances that lie in the historical and cultural tradition of the community. That's one example that comes to mind. Again, happy to share more about the festival and some of the content from there. Samya, do you want to share any other example?
No, I think the same one came to my mind as well. So I've just shared the link of the intervention which specifically drew on photography. It's called Through the Eyes of the Coolies. Yeah, I think that clearly shows again the transition of that creek area through the years. And like Harpreet mentioned, it brought together different photographers to talk about this issue and show them through the lens of photography.
Thanks both. So we have 2 more minutes. We have a question from Arti Kumar. She's asking, do you track the long-term impacts of these campaigns, exhibitions that you've done? Could you share some of the impacts that you would like to highlight? But I will also add my own question to this, which is that how do you track these impacts, right? Like, is there a sort of approach that you would like to share?
Yes, tracking impact beyond the life of the project cycle is always a challenge. And I think when it comes to public mobilization, there's some recognized gaps within the evaluation methodology as well to capture, how do you generate evidence for long-lasting public change, public action. But this is an ongoing conversation at Purpose. And I think to answer this very simply, one of the key things that we are interested to map is what is the follow-up action that happened after, say the exhibition that we did or festival that we did. Are there stakeholders who were earlier not engaged in our conversation? Are they also now becoming engaged in the conversation or in the issue area? Has there been follow-up action taken on some of the key demands that our campaign is raising? So just to give you an example, the new Catch in Town, which is actually a community-led model to collect solid waste that is being generated within the creeks. This is a model that we were disseminating through the public festival that we did, as well as through the video and other creative collaterals that we had created. And this is a model that was following the work that we did was being cited as a model for replication. So this is something that we gauged, that there were stakeholders who were proactively taking it up as a model and advocating for its replication at